Hello everyone, welcome to the Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry. Today I'm going to discuss the books I've read by another of the Nobel Prize winning authors I've read, Knut Hamsun. Knut Hamsun was a Norwegian writer. He lived from 1859 to 1952. And he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1920. But he was credited as one of the pioneers in psychological literature with stream of consciousness and interior monologue. Quite a well-respected, well-known writer. So I'll show you the books I've read and say something about them. The first book I have is Hunger, and this is a novel about a starving artist, and that's it meant in the literal sense. He's a writer who suffers just extreme hardship for the sake of continuing to write. And we follow him basically as he wanders the streets of Christiana, just barely hanging on, and he occasionally is able to sell something just so he can continue on to the next one. The next book I have is Mysteries. This was published in 1892, and this follows a man named Nagel. He's just a very eccentric character with some very erratic behavior. He can go from just a calm conversation into mania, and oftentimes it's fueled by alcohol. The next book I have is Pan, published in 1894, and this is a book that's written in basically two parts. The majority of it is the first part, and then a small epilogue. But this follows a next soldier named Glon. He lives in a hut in northern Norway, and he goes hunting with his dog. But Glon meets a young woman named Edvarda. They fall in love, but neither of them fully understands the other, and eventually their relationship dies. And this first part was told by Glon in the first person, and it's written very similar to a memoir. And then there's a short epilogue that follows that's about Glon's death, and this is written by an unnamed narrator, and it gives a very different account of him and what he had told in the first part of the book. The next book I have is Victoria, published in 1898, and this is basically just a tragic love story. It's written in Hamsun's just overly dramatic, poetic prose, but it follows at an early age a young man named Johannes and a young woman named Victoria. They're secretly in love with each other, but neither of them acknowledges it to the other because of the circumstances in their lives. Johann is the son of a miller, and Victoria is a daughter that lives in a castle next door. Johann, after he's grown, moves away, and he eventually becomes a famous poet. He would occasionally visit his home and would see Victoria often when he was back. But she's now engaged to a wealthy nobleman. Eventually, they each confess their love for the other, but then circumstances just prevent that from going any further. The next book, published in 1904, is Mothwise. And this follows a man, Ove Rolandson. He's a bit of a scoundrel, and he likes to flirt with the girls, and he seems to have just no ambition, but he works as a telegraph operator and lives in the room of the premises of the telegraph office. On the side, he works as an inventor, and he discovers a new formula for a fish glue. But in order to obtain a patent for it, he has to come up with the money to pay for that, for the application. And this leads to some misadventures for him. In 1917, he published Growth of the Soil. This is probably his best-known book, but this follows the life of Isaac, who, as a young man, sets out on his own, and the story basically just follows Isaac throughout his life as he obtains a farm and gets the equipment for the farm, and follows him on into old age until he actually decides to leave the farm and leave it to his grown children. It's a story that really doesn't have any great significant things happen, but it's just a beautifully written book that it seems to be a lot about the beauty of the land. In 1920, he published The Women at the Pump, and this is a bit of reads like a soap opera really, but he uses subtle humor, and he tells the story of a Norwegian fishing village and its citizens. There's a man, Oliver Anderson, who was a seaman, and he lost a leg in an accident, and he becomes a rather pathetic man who plays up his condition as a cripple, looking for sympathy and assistance. But then eventually he ends up marrying and has children, and eventually finds a job. And the last book I have by Hamsun is The Ring is Closed, published in 1936. This follows a man, Abel. He returns to the small town he is from after his father has died. He inherits money from his father, but he also, when he's back, forms a relationship with his father's young wife. He's basically bothered with events that take place in his life, and then he finally leaves and sets off for America. But those are the books I've read by Knut Hamsun, really an excellent writer, and wrote some interesting books. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on another video. Thanks.